And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast here tonight to cover the Rowdies. That is what we do, and we do it every week. I'm here tonight with Carlos. As per usual, Carlos, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, James. It is a lovely Wednesday evening. The sun shining into my little room here. Wearing my, by the way, I got this jersey on discount for like $30. Super nice jersey. It's a pink Arsenal jersey if you're not watching us on YouTube. Yeah, I'm feeling good. You know, got my Rowdies hat on. You can't see the logo because it's backwards, but yeah, I mean, not sure I'm looking forward to talking about this game. It was a soccer game. It was played out, and there were 90 minutes of soccer. Much more looking forward to talking about the game coming up this weekend, James. Before any of that, obviously, again, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? Anything to update us on? Personal life, personal accomplishments? What's going on?
Yeah, nothing too much this week, nothing all that different. I did think if you were wearing a pink jersey, it was going to be like all the recent ones that I've seen that are new Inter Miami fans all over the place. But I assume a little bit better of you there, Carlos. So obviously we will avoid that. Something else I would rather avoid, another good segue from yours truly. This past weekend, the Rowdies went away to Pittsburgh and unfortunately lost 1-0. So with that loss, nobody got any points in our personal standings. And in addition to that, the Rowdies did not get any points. So there we are. Eureka and the guest stay first in those personal standings that we are keeping here at RBLR Sports. They are on 16 points. And then Carlos, you and I are behind them on 14. But we will have another chance to up our scores all this week or this weekend, I should say, when the Rowdies host Monterrey Bay from California. So looking forward to that for not only us, but also probably the Rowdies to maybe make up a little bit of ground that they dropped recently. But yeah, that is where we will be going tonight. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube and all other major podcast platforms because we are there as well. And of course, please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you are on social media at RBLR Sports. Now, Carlos, if you could, please take us through the quick recap for this game. I think that we have some questions that we have to get to, unfortunately, here.
Yeah, James, as I mentioned, there was a soccer game played. And that's as much as I really want to say about the game, to be honest. But the Rowdies went into Pittsburgh with a starting lineup, including Connor Sparrow in goal, Antley, Kleeman, and Guillen making up a back three. Dayonn Harris, Charlie Dennis, Jordan Doherty, Ekra, Armin making up the midfield unit with JJ, Williams, and LaCava up top. Kind of making up a front two striker duo. Was an interesting lineup. Interesting to see them continue to kind of play in that striker duo role with Cal Jennings coming off the bench. Albert Dikwa scored in the 3rd minute. It was a really early goal. As I mentioned to James before we started recording, I was at the watch party in Oldsmar that the Rowdies were hosting, and they didn't even get the game on the TV by the time, Pittsburgh took a 1-0 lead.
Jeez.
As you can imagine, once the screens were on, it was a little bit disappointing to see we were already on the back foot. And that was about most of the action we'd see for the rest of the game, to be honest. Dayonn Harris also came off early in the game before halftime. And we'd see Abel Caputo come in and replace him, adjust the formation slightly. Obviously, he's not kind of that wing player role that Dayonn Harris is, so he moved into the midfield, more of the central midfield unit. It was a very weird thing to navigate, James, as you could probably see. Threw off the game plan kind of early. And obviously, things didn't really go our way much after that or at all. Yeah, and that was about it, James. Very quickly, we would end up losing the game 1-0 off of that very, very early goal. An incredibly huge opportunity that we unfortunately squandered this weekend. As the 2 games in hand that we have on Pittsburgh, we still have them, but now we're 6 points behind instead of we could have been tied on points with 2 games in hand. That would have been pretty nice. So again, a huge opportunity squandered, unfortunately. Kind of, closing our, I guess, window for errors as we come on to like the final third of the season or so. It's going to be a tight race up top. We did have a chance to take the lead and create some room for us on top of the table over the next couple of weeks if we were able to get this win or come out with a draw even. But unfortunately, Pittsburgh, with the great side that they have, like we mentioned last week, were able to get the 1-0 win on us and create a little bit of buffer room for them over us. Yeah, and that leaves Charleston Battery in between us, by the way. Charleston Battery on 39 points, one more point than us, but we do have a game in hand over Charleston. So, again, going to be a tight race up top. Behind us, Louisville and Memphis are also closing in very, very rapidly. Louisville is only 3 points behind, and Memphis is only 4 points behind. We do have better goal differential by a lot. So, if we get to that point at the end of the season, hopefully that helps us out a bit. But it's going to be a tight race in this top 5, James. In this game that kind of kept us in the mix there, it's going to make it all the more tighter as we come up on this final stretch. Again, final third or so of the season. So still a bit of season to go. Definitely nothing decided as of now, obviously. Lots of soccer to be played, but a crucial kind of mid-season matchup opportunity that I think we wasted, unfortunately. That being said, James, let's talk about how that happened, right? Like why that happened. Because again, with the roster we have, I think I was feeling pretty confident going into this game. I even gave like a pretty absurd score prediction of like, I don't even remember. I think I said like 3-1, which was a little bit unreasonable given how good Pittsburgh was. But last time we went into Pittsburgh, we scored a lot of goals, ended up winning. I felt that it could happen. Unfortunately, it didn't, obviously. Variety of reasons. Let's just talk about that first half then. 3 minutes into the game, Dikwa scores the first goal. What the hell happened there? What about the injury too? I mean, these injuries on the wings, like I mentioned last week, kind of starting to rack up, really starting to rack up. We're getting to a point where it's going to be kind of in the danger territory of having to like almost switch up formations if Dayonn Harris is hurt long term ish, or at least for a couple games. What's going on? Like before we get to any of that, first half, James, I'm rambling. I'm getting concerned about the future just because Dayonn Harris could be hurt. What happened in the first half? Let's just start there and kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, obviously it started very early, as you already said, and that that didn't kind of set the tone. It just straight up set the tone. That was the way that it went because there were no other goals. So early on in this game, we saw a very effective press from Pittsburgh Riverhounds. I think that that's something that the Rowdies have been known for most of all, but unfortunately, it was the Riverhounds who were the much better at it over this past weekend, and it played into their advantage. Now, we keep track of the scores and the lineup and everything on FOTMob, and on that app, it has the Rowdies with a back 5. I didn't really see that as we started the game. We had more of like 4 at the back, I would say, with Kleeman and Guillen as the 2 center backs, as it were. And then Jake Ironman and Connor Antley were the 2 fullbacks, not actually wing backs. I think that Jake LaCava and Dayonn Harris were playing more as like closer to actual wingers than, we've seen in the past. So it was a little bit more like when we had Ryan Spalding on the team, for instance. Ryan Spalding, frequently we would take up a position more like this, and then it would kind of just revert into a 5 at the back system. But either way, that is kind of the formation that we had. And Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they did have 2 up top and actually 5 at the back for a lot of the game. It would change depending on the situation, of course, but they were pretty much able to their cover during the press was perfect. They played us exactly the way they needed to put us under the pressure to cough up the ball, and that's what we saw in the 3rd minute there. Ultimately, there was a ball that got back to Kleeman, who played it to Connor Sparrow, and you could see the Pittsburgh Riverhound forward. I'm not sure exactly which one it was that was chasing Kleeman here, but he was, sprinting at him, absolutely like all out, and tried to get past Kleeman back to Connor Sparrow when the ball was passed to him. So Sparrow had to one time it away to Aaron Guillen. Aaron Guillen didn't have a lot of time on the ball. He takes one touch, and you know what he does is he just hits it as far as he can. Unfortunately, under that pressure, it wasn't that far, and it landed right before the halfway line to a Pittsburgh Riverhounds player. And he played it right up into the middle, which had been vacated by Aaron Guillen because he turned with the ball to the left to get rid of it. And so, yeah, that little bit of space there, the two of them, the two Pittsburgh Riverhounds forwards, I should say, combined just the tiniest bit that they needed to get past Guillen and Kleeman, who were making their runs to try and recover, but unfortunately they did not. And yeah, that was the goal of the game. Ultimately, I think that the Rowdies were able to calm down a little bit, and they were able to possess the ball a lot more. Ultimately, the statistics that I have here, 60-40 in terms of possession for the Rowdies, but that doesn't mean that the pressing wasn't a very big factor, and it obviously was, especially to start the game. And I think that this is something that the Rowdies have tried to do in the past, where they were all out, obviously on the press. We want to get something early, and we want to try and get on the scoreboard then. And then if we're already in a position where we're ahead and the other team has to chase, then the game kind of opens up for us to play a different kind of game that we would like to. Unfortunately, though, with the Rowdies chasing, it didn't really open up for us either way. And then the next thing that really stood out, unfortunately, was the aforementioned injury to Dayonn Harris. Dayonn Harris was starting on the right wing, I would say, for the most part, in replacement of Sebastian Dalgard, who had been starting there beforehand, and then he was injured. 4 or 5 games now, whatever it was, that he's been out. But yeah, he's still out, I believe. I don't think he was on the bench for this one.
He wasn't.
Yeah. So in fact, we only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players on the bench. So not a good sign. But if Dayonn Harris is out for a longer period, this kind of goes back to where we were a little bit at the start of the season. If you think about it, Lewis Hilton went down very early, and in the first game, if I'm not mistaken, he came back for a second, and then unfortunately, since then, we have seen him on crutches and with a boot on his leg. I don't know when he'll be back, if this season, but so that's a long-term injury. Zach Harivo has been out for however many months now, and I don't know when he's coming back. The other player obviously is Leo Fernandez. Everybody knows that one. But Jake Araman was another one who was out to start the season, and we got Ryan Spalding on loan, and Ryan Spalding helped us out a lot, not just because he is a very good player. He is. He's actually been playing for the New England Revolution as one of their contributing left backs. So that's actually pretty cool to see, because I thought that he was deserving of that. But anyway, that's not here nor there for the Rowdies fans. He came in and he contributed because we needed more players on the wings. And right now, Sebastian Dalgard is out injured, as we've said. Dayonn Harris now, we don't know what the extent of this is, and hopefully we'll get some information from the team before the game on Saturday. I don't know. But if those two are both out, then what are we looking at? I don't really know here, because Jake LaCava started as a left winger-ish, like more so than the left attacker that we've seen. And when Dayonn Harris had to go off, Abel Caputo came on, and he's a central midfielder, so he moved into that spot. Jordan Doherty is not surplus to requirements there, but it serves us better to shift him back instead of having 3 central midfielders and kind of no one going up the right wing, obviously. So that allowed Antley to do that a lot more, but unfortunately we still never really connected on any of those. And I just did a little bit of the math for the stats here. Pittsburgh was just able to, it's a Bob Lilly team. They're always going to be very good on the defensive side, and they were just as well this past weekend. Ultimately, we had 4 total shots. 1 was on target. That's the whole game.
Nice.
And our accurate crosses, 1 accurate cross all game.
Nice.
With, some quick math showing us that it was 12 total crosses, in 90 minutes. That shows you just how good Pittsburgh Riverhounds was at shutting us down, really.
Yeah.
Danny Griffin is a fantastic player, but he wasn't the only one that was involved in all of that. I think that their
Yeah.
wingbacks were doing a great job. And again, it all started from the top. It started from their press with Tola Shawunmi and Albert Dikwa. They were doing a great job. So
Yeah.
congrats to Pittsburgh. F you guys and all that, but it was a very good performance on their part, and I think that it kind of showed our limitations right now in this moment. Maybe not as a team overall, but with the players we're missing, especially, it kind of went that way.
You know what's crazy though is you mentioned how good Pittsburgh is at shutting us down, but I was like pretty unimpressed by what Pittsburgh was able to do offensively as well. I thought we did a pretty
Yeah,
good
that's
job
fair.
of shutting them down as well. Again, one opportunity at the beginning that they did a really nice job of putting away. It was some great interplay between Dikwa and Shalonmi. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Right in the box, got Kleeman and Guillen confused, like you said. Both went after Shalonmi and just left Dikwa open for half a second. All the space he needed to finish that goal. But apart from that, I mean, again, you look back at the stats, they had more shots than we did, but they only had one shot on target as well, the
Yep.
whole game, which was their goal. You don't usually win a game with one shot on target. I mean, it's not how that works. But unfortunately, we didn't really create anything either. And their one shot on target was a better chance than ours was. Our only shot on target, if you recall, James, was at the end of the first half. JJ Williams kind of just saying screw it and taking everybody on by himself. Took on 3 Pittsburgh defenders with a little interesting move that I can't even describe. Just a couple nice little dribble. Took on 3 Pittsburgh defenders and shot a ball with his left foot near post. A good looking shot and a decent shot, but it's a shot
It
that
was, yeah.
Jamali Waite is always going to save because he's a fantastic keeper and I love that man to death. But most USL quality keepers, professional keepers, are going to stop that shot. It's a really, really tough shot to actually finish. So officially on the night, James, we didn't even have a single quote unquote big chance, quote unquote, like Thought Mob has this, has that stat, however they define that.
Right.
That was our only shot on target. But again, like the crazy, frustrating thing is that Pittsburgh also only had that one shot on target that ended up in the net. That being said, they had a couple other decent chances, but not many more. I can't even really think of one more like really dangerous opportunity that they had off the top of my head. But I think the way you can kind of see that they didn't really have anything particularly dangerous was, again, they only had one shot on target. Connor Sparrow didn't have to make or maybe it would have been nice if he made like a crazy save. But apart from that, he didn't make any saves on the night just because there wasn't anything to save after that first goal. Like it's a little bit frustrating just because of that. It was one of those games like in the past few away games where we could have at least walked out with a draw because the other team didn't do anything either.
Yeah.
I feel like we saw this against
That's fair.
Birmingham. Yeah, we saw this against Birmingham when we went over there and dropped that game. We saw this against Indy. We went over there and ended up drawing that game against Indy. Like nothing much for either team, to be honest. Except that game was a little bit more interesting. I won't say nothing, but a game we could have left with maybe the win. But it's just like 3 straight away games with no goals. Like the best outcome is a draw. It's not a great situation to be in. And then you add into the fact, you add on to that this Dayonn Harris injury. I think it was just last week or a couple of weeks ago when we were kind of diving into the implications of a Sebastian Dahlgaard injury.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying how I love Dayonn. I advocated for starting minutes for him. And then I said, wait, maybe he's a really good super sub. And he has been a great super sub at many points throughout the season. I can think of a couple games top of my head, including that Loudoun game a few weeks ago. Like, he's a great player and he's fantastic off the bench. But then I mentioned that with Dahlgaard out, he's going to have to seriously step up. He's going to kind of, he has to be the starter because there's no one else, right? And now we're looking at a Dayonn Harris injury. Like, I'm really curious about what that's going to do. Like, I don't know. We don't know many timelines. Maybe he's not even that badly hurt. Maybe he's back this weekend. Who knows? But if you think about like the possibilities or what the implications of adding that injury into the mix are, like I don't really know who you put out there, right? Like you're kind of forced to switch up the formation because there's not really anybody else you can throw out there. Again, unless you put like LaCava out there, or I don't know, like maybe even Charlie Dennis. Like he has played on the wing before in past teams, but it's like obviously not where he's shining at the moment. He's
It's
being
not. It's.
fantastic.
I would much rather he be in the number 10, as we've already said.
Exactly, exactly. Like so, like these are the things you have to take into consideration. Like, is it worth sacrificing those numbers that he's been putting up in there for maybe decent numbers on the wing and putting in like Kyle Jennings where Charlie Dennis has been? Like, I don't know. Those are decisions Nicky Law is going to have to make. I know my answer. My answer is that I wouldn't want to move Charlie Dennis anywhere because he's doing awesome there. But then what do you do with that wing, right? I don't know. Maybe, like you said, maybe we stick with this kind of like 4 in the back formation. Antley, Kleeman, Ian, Armin. Presumably Lasso is back. I don't think he's been injured or anything, right?
Not to my knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not fully sure why he wasn't with the team this week, or at least like in the lineup or anything or on the bench. But I don't know. So like there's options on the back line. Like you can move into like a 4-4-2, 4-5-1, with like Armin on one side, and I don't know, like I really don't know what you put on the other side right now. I'm looking at the roster and like who's healthy. It's a tough situation. It's going to be an interesting decision. I'm really curious how it's going to look this weekend. That's getting into the preview a bit against Monterrey Bay. I'm not going to say anything about that game yet, but just generally looking forward, like it's a little bit concerning because we kind of saw, I guess, I don't know, but we saw what happens when you don't have anybody else and you have to bring in Abel Caputo and like really switch things up. So maybe with a full week of game planning, maybe knowing, again, I don't know anything, but hypothetically, let's say Dayonn Harris is out this weekend, Dahlgaard's still not back. We don't have anybody else on the wing. Hopefully, with like a full week of game planning, there's some sort of strategy in place to adjust and keep things as normal as possible, right?
Or maybe a loan.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there's something in the works there that we would have come that we don't know about. I don't know. I will say that I'll definitely pass by one of these trainings sometime this week to see if there's anything I can learn from just observing practice. Also just want to see what Nicky Law is like in a practice, by the way. I think that'd be really interesting to kind of see what his personality is like. So I'm kind of rambling at this point. You get my point. I'm a little bit concerned, but I don't know. Like we have a good team. There's a lot of talent. So I don't know. Like hopefully we can just adjust and pretend like none of this happened and just keep winning. But it's certainly going to be more difficult than before if these injuries, if nobody comes back, right, this weekend and everything's kind of how it is right now, then it will certainly be difficult. But I don't know, like maybe you have a better eye on this than me because you seem to have more of an eye for the tactics. Did you see anything like what were the adjustments when Caputo came in? Like he wasn't playing on the wing, right? He was kind of in his central midfielder role. But then who was out there on the wing? It was Antley kind of. He was kind of taking over that role.
The way that I saw it was, Jordan Doherty just kind of dropped deeper. I mean, we've seen from Jordan Doherty him playing as kind of an Lewis Hilton role, but also we've seen him willing to take up, carry the ball a little bit every now and again. I think that's kind of what he was doing more so here than just like the Lewis Hilton. You receive the ball from the right, you take one touch to turn, and then you find somebody on the left, or you do the opposite. I think that more so he was starting out in the back alongside Dayonn and Kleeman, and it was like an actual 3 at the back, which we've seen Jordan Doherty play there too. And then Connor Antley had kind of like the whole wing to get up and down. At that point, Jake LaCava, I think it was more he was playing as an actual like attacker instead of like a winger. And then and I got to say this, this is something actually that I wanted to get your opinion on here too. I don't know how much I think Jake LaCava has really caught fire this second time around with us, because he hasn't. I don't think he's contributed. Let me double check here. I don't know exactly what he's contributed offhand, but I don't think that he's contributed in all the stats that we were used to when we had him in last year. I think that when we got him last year on loan, he came in and he started off like immediately on fire, if I remember correctly.
He was
but I
hot.
really haven't seen that. Jake LaCava so far has, well, two
2
goals and
goals.
1
Yeah.
assist. That's not too bad in 9 games, I should say. But
Yeah.
anyway, what is your opinion of the other thing, I guess, with Jake LaCava, maybe whether or not he's caught fire? That's probably something that we could go into. But more so, what do you think that his best role is at this point with this Rowdies team?
That's what I've been
That's
so
a better
back
one.
and yeah, that's what I've been so back and forth on, because like, again, looking at those numbers, like 2 goals in 9 games doesn't seem like, 2 goals and 1 assist in 9 games doesn't seem that bad. It's actually pretty decent. But it was like kind of at the beginning of his time with us. He had that 1 goal against El Paso, and then off the bench that really sorry, not off the bench. He had a really nice performance against Loudoun United. Where he had a goal and an assist. So again, a couple decent performances, but then after that, like, it's been 6 straight games without a goal or an assist, which is kind of not what you want from a guy that's playing as like your main striker, as one of your like striker duo guys. And again, he's been kind of playing in that role sometimes, but he's also sometimes been out on the wing. So I'm not really sure. I think with this like potential injury situation with Dayonn Harris maybe being out, I think we might be forced to see him on the wings. And I think he's decent out there. I honestly think, just from my knowledge of him, having seen him play for a little bit, like I think he is still better in like that striker role than he is on the wing. I know it hasn't like produced as much this season as we might have hoped for already. But I still think that's kind of his like natural position. He is decent on the wing though. Like, don't get me wrong, right? He's pretty good on the wing. He's a great dribbler. But he's got a knack for like getting behind enemy lines and making the run at a good time. And I think that's why he's nice up top. But again, just haven't seen that level of production yet. So it's a little bit frustrating, and I get that for sure. So I don't know. I think, like, going back to what we've been talking about with the injuries, it's nice to have somebody like Jordan Doherty in the mix, because he's somebody that's so flexible, like you said. I could totally see us going to like a back four with like Armin at left back, Lasso, Guillen center backs, and then, or Lasso, Kleeman, like whoever, probably Guillen, and then Jordan Doherty at right back, and then having like Antley as a right midfielder, kind of like a winger, and then putting LaCava out on the left side, and then like Kyle Jennings and JJ Williams up top, something like that. Or like a back five with, again, from left to right, out back you have Armin, Kleeman, Guillen, Lasso, Antley. But then you wouldn't really have any backup defenders. That would be your whole, defensive unit on the field at the same time, which is a little bit risky. And then you'd have like Doherty in the midfield with Ekra and Dennis, and then your front two, right? So like there's ways to come out with a really strong 11 on Saturday, even with all these injuries. The depth just starts to get really, really thin. And again, if you, by, God willing we don't, but if there is an injury on the back line, then there's not anybody else to come in if you play with like a back five.
Right.
So it's getting a little nervy. And I think this is one of these points where like we're gonna need like Jake LaCava to really step up. He's a player that, like you said, hasn't been producing as much. And if there is a time to start doing that, it would be now, because we need all the help we can get up top when it comes to offensive production to balance out, I guess, the lack of depth we have on the wings. We're going to need some individual moments of brilliance, I guess, sometimes from a LaCava, from a Cal Jennings, from a JJ Williams, wherever they're playing, and wherever Nicky Law, I guess, decides that Jake LaCava is best. So I guess we'll have to see how that plays out on Saturday. But I still think that he is a fantastic striker.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of his like natural position, where he can shine the most. I do think that the constant shifting at the wing position and this kind of like weird dynamic with injuries and whatever, like I'm sure that's not helping him produce because you can't really score if the ball's not getting to you either, right? So I don't know. Maybe I'm making excuses for him, but thankfully it's not my job to decide that because it's an interesting spot right now. So um complicated but interesting. And again, despite all of that, everything going on, the injuries, the recalled loan players and Lawrence White being with us for like a game and a half.
Yeah.
Like we can still go out on Saturday and put out an 11 that is arguably still the best in the league, which is insane to say with all these injuries, by the way. So that's really nice to think. That's really nice. And I think it should be reaffirming to any Rowdies fans that are just getting really nervous about the rest of the season with new coach, players injured, everything. Like I get it. I really do. I'm still pretty confident in this team just with how much raw like talent there is. There's a lot to be comforted in that way.
Yeah.
Maybe players aren't playing in like the position where they really, really want to, but that's okay. Like it's part of the business. Sometimes
the
you have to
sport.
make sometimes we have to make sacrifices, I guess. I don't see a situation where Charlie Dennis, I guess, goes out to the wing, but who knows? If it has to happen, it has to happen. He's a fantastic winger. If LaCava has to move from the striker role to a left wing role, I'm more than willing to accept that because he's a fantastic winger as well. So, adjustments kind of suck to do at this point in the season, but it has to happen. So it's nice to know that we can do that and we can do that in a position that puts us still among, if not the best team in the league. I think that's a luxury that every other team in the league wishes they could have.
I think that's fair. Well, Carlos, I think that we pretty much answered all the other questions that we had lined up at this point. So unless you've got anything else, I was going to say we could just move to our man of the match because I didn't have anything in particular about the second half or anything else. It's just that's the way that it went.
I was just gonna say, like, again, not much going for us throughout the game. Again, or for Pittsburgh. That's the frustrating part. It was a really boring game. Like there wasn't even a train that drove by their stadium like it usually does. And I was kind of waiting for a train to kind of go through the background. It would have been really funny. That was the nature of this game. There wasn't anything going for either team. We had more shots in the second half, believe it or not, than we did in the first half, but not a single one of them were on target. We had more possession. We had the keys to succeed, but Pittsburgh really, really did a great job of shutting us down. And we couldn't create anything. We just couldn't do it. And again, that's not a kind of knock on our ability or what we were able to do, or I don't know, even like I think we did a half decent job, especially with like Dayonn Harris having to come out and Caputo having to come in as such a new player, and like he did a decent job. Like nothing particularly great or bad to say about him. So that's a decent thing to have for a central midfielder. It was fine. Pittsburgh just had one more moment of brilliance on us and locked down, I think, just as well as we did. Jamali Waite is a decent keeper, so he was able to stop our one shot on target.
Yep.
That's it. Second half has no other moments of brilliance. Nothing going for us or them. And eventually, second half finished 0-0. Whole game, 1-0. We lost. And that's it. It's unfortunate. It was a missed opportunity, but given the circumstances, the crazy adjustment we had to make at 20 minutes into the game after going down 1-0, 3 minutes into the game, it's not surprising that we lost. It is frustrating that this is now 3 away games in a row with no goals. Like, I'm not saying that away games are like our weakness or anything. There's been a lot of turmoil in those 3 games with like coaching changes and Neil Collins going off and then Nicky Law coming in after Stuart Dobson injuries. So I don't think it has anything to do with like us playing away per se, but it is frustrating to turn on the TV, be at a watch party, and like nothing, just like 0 goals. And they've been like boring games too. That's the part that sucks, James.
Yeah.
Like it's just that we've done like our defensive midfielders, like Jordan Doherty, even like Jan Ecker, even though he is pretty defensive sometimes in the midfield. That's kind of his role. Like they've done a good job. We've been kind of shutting down the other team's passing lanes in those 3 games. We didn't give anything to anybody. It's like really earned those opportunities. And unfortunately, 2 of those games ended up as 1-0 losses just because they had one more shot on target. They had one more opportunity. And yeah, that was it. That's why these away games have been really frustrating too. Like, they should have at least been draws, but it is what it is. We need to ramp up the offense as well. So, long story short, it's fine. We still have 2 games on Pittsburgh. We can catch up, but it would have been nice to be tied with them right now and have those 2 games in hand.
Yep.
Past is in the past. Time to look ahead, James. Before we do that, man of the match. Unless you have anything else to say in the second half.
No, I am ready for man of the match. I think that we should do it.
Let's go. Who's your guy?
All right. Well, my guy is Jordan Doherty. Jordan Doherty was able to fill in at the back when we had an injury to Dayonn Harris that forced us to change things up. And, I think that he did a very good job there. It kind of settled us down a little bit, in all honesty. Like, we were able to handle the pressing that we got from Pittsburgh because he was sitting back a little bit deeper. And that just offered one more outlet. But also, I think that he facilitated possession better than really anybody out there. Unfortunately, that possession did not facilitate itself into, attacking chances. And that's kind of what we're all going for, obviously, as fans of the Rowdies. But I think that with more work in the positions that they're in, if this is the way that it turns out, maybe Jordan Doherty and Abel Caputo could kind of work it out so that they can make that happen in the future. I don't know. But either way, like I said, he filled in admirably at a position where we needed him immediately. And I think that was super valuable when we were playing against a team who really seemed to be creating most of their chances, if any, off of trying to make us cough up the ball close to our own net.
Yeah, super valid. I think it's a fantastic choice. That press was really tough to deal with, and I think we did a pretty good job of doing it. Fantastic lineup that Pittsburgh has, and I think we played them well. We just didn't generate anything offensively to create anything dangerous, and I think a just result would have been 0-0. But again, they had one more moment of brilliance, and that was it. That's all it took. My man of the match, James, is none other than Connor Antley? ? Yeah, this is one of those games where I just didn't really have anybody in particular to say like, wow, like they had a fantastic game. I'm not saying Antley didn't have a fantastic game. He had a decent game. That's about all you can ask for in a game where it ended 0-0. And yeah, I mean, you can give some credit to our back line as well for maintaining that. Or sorry, maintaining only losing by 1, I guess, not 0-0. But I think Antley caught my eye somewhat just because, again, with the nature of Abel Caputo coming in, Dayonn Harris having to come out, Antley got up a bit more. He doesn't usually get to show off his offensive prowess that much. He's obviously kind of more defensive by the nature of his position. He was the USL League One Defensive Player of the Year, I believe, a few seasons ago. So that's like kind of where his strength might be, but he's also got some stuff in him offensively. Obviously, we've seen that in the past, and I think it was nice to see that he could get up the field still and, adjust to things so on the fly. Kind of like you said about Doherty. A lot of these guys on like the back right side midfield area, there was a lot of adjustment early on in the game, and maybe that might be kind of where we're going for the rest of the season. So it's nice to see that players can do that well. And again, I think it's even nicer to know that with a full week of preparation, we can make those adjustments and make them even better to the point where they're seamless transitions, right? It's much harder to make those adjustments in game than it is to make them with a week of preparation before a game. That being said, Connor Antley is my man of the match, but a special shout out to Abel Caputo. This was technically not his debut, right? He had those like 2 minutes of game time the week before, but this is his first like substantial minutes, and he had to do it impromptu off the bench, filling in after a Dayonn Harris injury, and I think he played well, right? He's not a guy that's going to create a ton of offensive opportunities. He's a defensive midfielder, and he did it well. Nothing bad to say about him, and sometimes that's the best thing you can say about a guy that plays his position. So kudos to him. Hope to see more from him. Hope to see a couple shots from him. I've seen some highlights of his. He can rip it. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do with us for the rest of the year if he has to play more minutes than expected.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, all right, Carlos, we have a preview to get to, but before we do, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not gone to the first RBLR Sports Watch Party or the second RBLR Sports Watch Party, guess what? There is another one coming up. Please join us on August 26th to hang out again at BarrieHaus off the Ybor Strip and get some beer pitcher specials, take in the live pregame show, possibly even get yourself some swag at the halftime giveaway as we see the Rowdies take on and hopefully beat the Miami FC. Yeah, we will be there again. It is Saturday, August 26th, and we will be doing all the same stuff, all that great stuff that hopefully you have taken in before. But if you haven't and you're still wondering, hey, what's that like? Why don't you come see? We're going to have a great time, and we're all going to have some beer pitcher specials along the way. So, yeah, please come join us. And Carlos, would you like to take the next one for us?
James, I would love to. There's a little something going on in the creative loafing scene, right? Wanted to mention this because it's really, really cool, and I'm glad we are in consideration for it. And I want everybody listening. I would love, and I know I'm speaking for James and Eureka and everybody in the RBLR Sports family. We would love your support in the Best of the Bay. I don't what do you even call it? The creative loafing Best of the Bay competition, I guess. Tons of different categories to vote in. One of those is the best podcast, and we were lucky enough to be nominated for that. Hopefully everybody in the world votes for us. But if you're listening to us, I would appreciate just a little bit of extra support going to the link in the description and voting for RBLR as the best podcast in the Best of the Bay competition. So yeah, take some time to do that. It takes just a couple seconds. And while you're there, check out all the other cool stuff on there. There's best restaurants, best venues for concerts, there's best bars, there's best everything in there. So maybe you get a few ideas for literally anything else. But while you're there, vote for RBLR as best podcast. And we'd really appreciate that. And I'm speaking a big, fat thank you on behalf of James and Eureka and everybody in RBLR as well, if you do that. So appreciate your support in advance. And yeah, let's get on with the rest of the show, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I also did vote for a couple of other things like Crowbar for a small venue. So if you have anything other than RBLR Sports that you think is a cool little outlet for whatever that is, creativity, venue, food, as Carlos said, and some other ones that I didn't even think of, like wedding websites or whatever. But yeah, if you have somebody, if you have anybody that you want to shout out, it's entirely possible that they're on there. So please go check it out and also vote for us. But Carlos, if you could get us started on the Monterrey Bay preview, and then we will get all the way through there.
Yeah, James, let's jump into that. Coming up this weekend on Saturday, the Rowdies host Monterrey Bay at Al Lang Stadium. Last season was the first time we played them, I believe. This season will be the first time they come to Al Lang. So I don't know, technically a little bit of history in there. That's kind of fun. They sit in 10th place in the Western Conference, not doing too hot, with 27 points on 23 games. We're in 3rd place in the East with 38 points on 22 games. If you look at their recent form, James, they have a pretty decent roster. I thought they were going to be decent this year, but they're not. They have lost 4 games in a row. They haven't won a game in 8 games. And, we just spoke about Miami FC, one of our upcoming opponents. Their last win was against Miami 8 games ago. It's been a little bit since they got 3 points on the board. So they're going to be hungry for sure, James. And
yeah,
I don't know what better opportunity to do it than against an injury-ridden Tampa Bay Rowdies at home.
That's how they're going to view it.
Exactly. They're going to want to take the 3 points. So let's jump into them. What do they have? What kind of threat do they pose to us? Who do they play? Who are the guys that make up this team? They generally seem to want to play with 5 in the back, but they can go to 4 if they feel like it. If they need it, the tactics are right. Grant Robertson, Hugh Roberts, Kai Green, and Maury Donor will be likely to start in the back with Moby Fair, Simon Dawkins, Adrien Rebollar, James Murphy, Rafael Baca, guys that have all sorted in the midfield that can play in front of them. That being said, they also have Chase Boone, Christian Volesky, and Alex Dixon, a name you might have heard once or twice before. He's been around the USL. Yeah, guys that have started up top. Alex Dixon, a good player in his own right. I believe last time I heard his name was with Hartford, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yep.
That being said, you might have heard his name because he's a pretty decent striker. He has 9 goals on the year. Volesky has 7. Sam Gleadle has 5 assists. Dixon and Volesky also have a few assists. For some reason, Gleadle hasn't played much recently. So, I don't know, maybe it's to our advantage. He's a pretty dangerous player, and if he doesn't play, that's better for us, I guess. Gleadle and right back Donner have led the way in chances created as well. Their starting goalkeeper, Anthony Siaha, didn't start last week. Carlos Herrera did. Don't know why. I don't know about any injuries. I mean, I don't know. Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see whoever starts in goal. Hopefully, we can put 5 goals by them because they're not a fantastic team by any means, but they're a professional soccer team. They do win games occasionally, even if they're in 10th place in the Western Conference. And again, they're going to see this opportunity. They're going to see this game as an opportunity to really kind of come back, right? Not a lot to lose for them right now. Rowdies are injury ridden. We have a new coach-ish. Like, this is a great opportunity in their minds to come in and steal 3 points from us at Al Lang. I don't think it's going to happen, is my prediction. So I get into my score prediction in a second, but I just want to go back and double check because I think it's pretty crazy. By the way, the last time they won a game was June 24th. So it's been over a month and a half or so since they won a game. They did win against Sacramento in Sacramento June 17th. So it's a team that has like the ability and the talent to randomly just show up and take some points from you. Like they beat Sacramento, but then they'll also turn around and lose, 4-0 to Colorado, lose to Detroit. Not a great team. I would say that they barely like scratched by Las Vegas, but we also did that. So I'm not going to really say much about that. So it's a team that isn't doing well by any means, but you never know. They have shown the ability to pull off the occasional upset, and I just hope it's not this week, and I don't think it will be, James.
Right.
What do you have to say about this game? Anything before we jump into the predictions?
I did want to highlight one player who has recently come to the Monterrey Bay team. That is Rafael Baca. He is a player who was originally drafted into MLS from, I think, Loyola Marymount University, some weird university that you've probably rarely heard of before. Anyway, he played for a while for San Jose Earthquakes. He happens to be Mexican American, so he moved from the San Jose Earthquakes to Liga MX, and there he played for like close to 10 years for one of the teams there, making like over 200 appearances in Liga MX. This is a very good player. This is somebody who is going to be dangerous. I'm not entirely sure if he's like from this Monterrey Bay area. Or if he went to school there. I don't know where the Loyola Marymount School is. I did not look that up. So I guess that's a little bad research on my part. But yeah, he's going to be dangerous. And I think that he is somebody that we are going to have to keep an eye out for one way or another. With Gladel possibly injured or whatever his deal is, I would like to see him not, that involved. But regardless, the right back behind him that you mentioned, Maury Donor, he is going to be another good player, and he is the one who I think has combined the most with Sam Gladel to produce all of their big chances and everything. So that those two are the ones who led, as you already said, and I think that they are the ones that are going to, if Gladel plays, they're going to kind of handle the right side for Monterrey Bay, and I think that that's something that we're going to have to keep in mind now. That will also, again, depend on the formation because they have lined up in different ways depending on who is available. So maybe the Sam Gladel, whether or not he is or isn't, is going to play a role in that formation. Carlos, yeah. I also don't know what's going on with the goalkeeper. So, it's really, they're facing their own problems, let's say. We have Dayonn Harris possibly out. Sebastian Dalgar might still be out. I don't know. Zach Harivo and all the other ones that we did. But I think that it's important to remember that other teams are facing kind of similar issues in certain places, not everyone, and not as much maybe. But it's hopefully something that will come to our benefit just a little bit in this game too. And either way, I'm still hopeful that we're going to get a win here. Do you want to start us off with the predictions, Carlos?
Yeah, I can. I'm not like I don't have any particularly strong inclinations about a score. I feel like we are gonna win and we should win. Um, by the way, I didn't realize how random a signing this Rafael Baca signing was
Yeah,
until you mentioned
extremely.
that. Like I know you had it in the notes here, and I totally missed how random that is. Played for Cruz Azul for like you said for like 10 years. Like you said, racked up a couple hundred appearances for them. So a well-known player over there. Um, Luckily, he's not like an offensive guy, more of like a Jordan Doherty type player. So
Right.
good talent back there, but hopefully not creating a ton of offensive opportunities for them. That being said, I think we win 2-0. I think we get the shutout. I think we win relatively comfortably. I know 2-0 is always like a kind of the most dangerous lead in soccer, supposedly, but I feel like this is a game that just based on what I've seen, the little I know about Monterrey, they don't have a lot going for them, obviously. Not a particularly strong offensive team. They haven't scored at all in the last 3 games. They've only scored 1 goal in their last 5 games. Actually, 1 goal in their last 6 games. So, like, they don't have a lot going for them offensively. And even this, despite the incredible talent of this Rafael Baca player, he's not going to add to their offensive abilities. So I think we keep the shutout. A lot of teams score a lot of goals on them, and I think we can be one of those teams, but I don't think we will. I think we'll score 2 goals. I think it's a comfortable win and a healthy win, and I think it's a reasonable win given our offensive state right now and kind of all the shifting around. Hopefully it gives some of the guys some confidence going forward.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that I do see that a lot of teams have scored quite a few on them. They're winless now in
Their last 7, they won
7
with.
games.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this has, the potential to be this or that. But all right. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to say, give me a 3-1 win for this one. 3-1 win.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll that's what I'll take. So what was yours? A 2-0 win and a 3-1 win for me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And while we're on it, producer Eureka has given his prediction. Another win for the Rowdies, 2-1. And our guest spot this week is Ben Wilcox of the Unused Substitutes podcast. He has chosen a 2-0 win for the Rowdies as well. So at this point, everyone is picking a Rowdies win. And I don't know. I'm still, we have got to beat them. So 3-1 for me. I'll take a 3-1 and I'm going to leave it there. We're not going to do anything more. Okay.
Yeah. You were trying to find a reason to be pessimistic, but
I was, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it.
I'm going to do it because despite everything there, James, like I feel like this team, like I know it's like has the makings to be a trap game and whatnot. We've said that before, but like this team's only scored 1 goal in the last 6 games. Like, come on. Like, I even think like I think the shutout is more than reasonable, but I like the fact that you have us scoring 3 goals because I think offensive production is more important than anything right now. And if we can get that going, I'm okay giving up a goal as well. So I like your prediction a lot too.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on before we can do anything else to our extra time segment. Carlos, do you want to get us started there? And I'll finish this off because I added a silly one, I think.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. I stayed up for the game and then I fell asleep and then I woke up just in time for the penalties, just like coincidentally. And I was so hyped because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is perfect timing. And then the U.S. women's national team, unfortunately, lost against Sweden, which is sad because I think we outplayed them based on what I saw. Again, I fell asleep because it was so late or early, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But based on what I saw and the penalties and the opportunities we had to put the game away, it's really, really unfortunate. We couldn't. I guess it's a testament as well to Sweden. I know they're a good team, but man, that one hurt because it definitely felt like a game that we should have won and we definitely could have won. It sucks. It sucks. It's pretty sad for American soccer right now because there was so much hype for this World Cup. Like literally, I think it was one of the more hypes up World Cups too in recent memory.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of great marketing around it, a lot of good advertising, and just hype in general. It's unfortunate that the games were at such ungodly hours, but people for the most part have been kind of into it, and then even people that don't care about soccer have been caught up in the excitement. And it's unfortunate that's to end earlier than I would have hoped. I think it's decent for women's soccer as a whole that so many teams are getting competitive to this point, and we can have a new winner at the end of this World Cup, and that's awesome. It just sucks that the U.S. won't be three-peating, unfortunately, with all the potential that we had to do it and everything kind of in place to make that happen. It's unfortunate. Shout out Mike Pendleton, right? He made the trip over there. Unfortunate for him as well, but I'm glad he got that experience. We had some
Still
Rowdies
jealous that he got to go to that.
Yeah, I'm glad we had some Rowdies representation out there. But yeah, sad day that morning, I guess. Just so unfortunate. But hey, I know it sucks for the US, but there's a lot of good soccer still coming up. A lot of really good games coming up. A lot of good stories still in the mix. Colombia's still in it. And that's really, really cool
They're
because
awesome right now.
nobody expected them to get this far, even with their star player, right? With, like I said, she's insane, by the way. If you haven't seen her play, she is insane to watch. Like I haven't seen like an electrifying player like that in soccer in a while.
And
just because.
Speaking of stories, what a story that she's got too.
Yeah, but that's crazy. If you don't know anything about her, she had struggling with cancer, I believe, at 15 years old, was it? I read about that. Came back to the game at like 16, 17, and all of a sudden at 18 years old, she's playing for Real Madrid, like in Spain and in the World Cup. Just absurd story. Like I think the World Cup has been really cool to highlight moments like that. Like obviously we wouldn't really know much about her had Colombia not qualified to the World Cup. Had they not been making this kind of crazy run. It's just been really, really cool to learn about all these different stories and women's soccer in different parts of the world and kind of how far it's coming. It's awesome. It's awesome. So do yourself a favor. Keep tuning into the games. I know it sucks. Like some people don't really have much of a reason anymore with the US out, but I would encourage everybody to still give it a chance, still watch the games, see how exciting it can be. Maybe just pick a team to root for the rest of the, tournament. Just have a little bit more. Yeah, I guess not England. Just have more of a stake in it. Like it'll be fun. So it's gonna be a fun ride to the end. Take advantage of it. Lots of great games coming. And who knows? Pull for Colombia if you want. It's a great story.
Absolutely. Our next note here goes back to the USL Championship. North Carolina will be back in the league.
Yes.
NCFC self-relegated a couple years ago. They are an organization that they are owned, I should say, by an organization that also owns the North Carolina Courage, a team my wife and I saw play in the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. So they have the two teams. And when the North Carolina Courage came along, NCFC self-relegated to the USL League One, which is the third division. I don't know why that was. I don't remember. I just didn't go into it, I guess, at the time. But regardless, they got whatever sorted out that they needed to. And now they are back up in the USL. Well, not now, but next year they will be back up in the USL Championship. So there is another kind of local team. It's not, local to us, but it is at least in the Southeast again. And I think that that's good, having Southeast representation. It represents the research triangle of Durham, Raleigh, and whatever the third one is in North Carolina. So it's a good urban population to have a team. And I think that that's really cool that they will be back up and hopefully, a good rival for us. Not too good of a rival, but a rival nonetheless.
Yeah, that's a fun team to have back in on our schedule. They were in the NASL with us as the RBLR. If you remember that cool little stadium, it's not that little, especially for USL standards. Pretty nice size stadium. Obviously, women's national teams had a few games over there. US Soccer has great relationship with that stadium, and NCAA as well has their Final Four over there. It's just fun stadium, and definitely worth a trip to that area at some point. So it's good to have them back in our division because I like NCFC. It's a fun team, pretty good fan base, pretty well supported, especially with Charlotte kind of having left the ranks of the USL and, become the official B team for Charlotte FC. We were missing like some sort of Carolina rivalry.
Yeah,
I don't know.
right.
You can't call it like a rivalry because it's not like there's that much intensity in it, but it's at least a couple teams in there. To have that going again is nice. We're missing some North Carolina presence, so it's good to have them back in the championship. Yeah. Sorry, I started rambling there, but North Carolina FC, fun team, fun to have them back. It'll be a good time.
When we play them, I hope to hear some Railhawks chant, some anti-Railhawks chants. That is what I'm hoping for.
Nobody knows what that is still, but I'm glad that was a name because it was really
Yeah.
fun to make fun of.
If you would like to watch some other soccer that isn't Women's World Cup or the USL Championship, I don't know why, but there is a lot of soccer. A ton of leagues are starting up this week, I believe, including the Premier League in England. But forget all of that because the League's Cup is going on, and Lionel Messi is just proving that he should still be playing at the top league in the world, I guess. I think everybody knew that MLS was kind of beneath him, so to speak, but apparently so are all the Mexican teams that he's going to play. He's scoring 2 goals every game. So I would say tune into that because the last game that I saw against Dallas was absolutely incredible. It ended up
so rigged.
I'm
putting my tinfoil cap on.
I've ever seen. It was 4-4 with an own goal on either side.
Yeah.
It was nuts, and it went to penalties, and they won. It was just nuts. But yeah, so I say tune into that one. Now, to get to my last point, if all of that sounds boring to you, if you think that all of those different options, the Premier League, this MLS Leagues Cup nonsense, the Women's World Cup, the USL Championship, if all of that, if it takes too long, if it's too many games, I got the championship for you. It's 1 week long. All of the teams from this country play each other in 1 week, and they wrap it up, and they have a championship by Sunday. That is the Greenlandic Football Cup.
Yes.
I am advocating that everybody tune in, if you can, to the Greenlandic Football Cup. If you actually do want to follow it, you can follow it on Pat's Football Blog. That is at Pat's Football Blog on Twitter. It is the world's game. And in Greenland, they love it. So if it's on YouTube, I think it was in the past, I'll, try to watch it. That's probably going to be difficult. But I did want to throw in one quick little fun thing here because I am a huge fan specifically of the obscure leagues and the tiny national teams and all that kind of stuff. So this kind of hits all my buttons in soccer.
Nice. That's really cool. I love those. Like you follow Far Away Football on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that guy? That's really fun. They just cover like random leagues and random storylines. And I'm like, yeah, this is what Twitter was built for.
Yep.
Or X.
Exactly.
If we're going by the new name, was what X is made for. But yeah, that'll be fun, James. Thanks for bringing that up.
All right. With all of that soccer now out of the way.
Hold on.
Is there more soccer?
Yes. Neil Collins also won his debut game in League One. 7-0, by the way. Nothing, no big deal. But he opened the League One. Yeah, they're in League One. He opened Barnsley's League One season with a 7-0 win over, I'm forgetting who it was, but it doesn't matter. They won 7-0. They did lose their first round EFL Cup match this past week, unfortunately. But it seemed like Barnsley fans were okay as long as they keep doing 7-0 wins in League One. So congrats, Neil Collins. That's really, really fun. Also, I'm putting on the tinfoil cap. The last Leagues Cup game, FC Dallas Inter Miami, was rigged. There's no way Farfan didn't mean to score that own goal. That was insane. It was a bullet of a header into his own goal. I don't know. Get mad at me. That was wild own goal, but still a fun game to watch. But yeah, congrats, Neil Collins. That was my last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up now.
All right. And with that, we will say thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We went a little long talking about all of the other leagues that are in this sport, but I think that it's worth it, especially with the Women's World Cup, because that is an actual huge event, not like all the other ones that we were mentioning. But regardless, yeah, it's It is the world's game. So if you would like to follow RBLR Sports for our Rowdies coverage, or maybe our Rays coverage, or our Bucks or our Lightning coverage, or our women's soccer coverage, you can do that on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, whatever the other ones are. I was going to say Threads. I was going to say the other one that I forgot. But anyway,
LinkedIn.
We are at, yes, on LinkedIn.
What's the other one? MySpace. All of it.
All of those, we are at RBLR Sports. So please do find us there and follow us wherever you do. You can also get at me. I am mostly on Twitter at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
At Carlos GPA10 on Twitter. The same. I will be tweeting a lot about South American soccer today and tomorrow because a couple Ecuadorian teams on the schedule, I guess, for Copa Libertadores and Sudamericana action, especially Liga tomorrow. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be tweeting all about it at Carlos TPA10. It's going to be a fun time. So if you want to learn about South American soccer, make that one of the random leagues you start following. Why not?
There you go. There you go. And you can like and subscribe to our podcast. Please, if you are on YouTube, you can get the full experience watching us there. And that is at RBLR Sports, of course. But we are also on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts, anywhere that you get podcasts. If you don't want to see our faces and just listen, you can do that too. But we are on both. So please do tune in. Now, for another week in the bag and another game coming up, come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.